or Taharis?
Taharas Yod Zion.
I'm sorry?
Taharas Yod Zion.
Nine, okay. Regarding one who is emptying a pit, and a sheretz was found in the first barrel, all the barrels are tamei. If it was found in the last barrel, that barrel is tamei, and all the rest are tahor. When is this? If when he empties the pit using each barrel, or if he empties the pit with a dipper, if a sheretz was found in one of the barrels, that alone is tamei. When is this? When he checks the barrels but does not cover them, or he covers them but does not check them. But if he checks the barrels and he covers them, and the sheretz are found in the barrel, everything is tamei. If the sheretz was found in the pit, everything is tamei, and if it was found in the ladle, everything is tamei. The section between the rounds and the grapes, the section between the rounds and the grapeskins is a public domain. The section of a vineyard that is in front of the harvesters is a private domain. That which is behind the harvesters is a public domain. When is this? When the public enters from the opening and leaves from that opening. Vessels of the olive press and of the wine press, such as a mesh basket, when they are made of wood, he scours them, and they are suitable to be tahor. When they are made of gemi, he ages them for a full 12 months, scalds them in boiling water. Rabbi Yossi says he puts them in the rapids of a river, it suffices.
Maseches Toros. Okay, and let's do one from the class.
There are 6 grades of Mikvaos, each higher than the other. The first grade is water in water holes. If a tummy person drank from it and then a tahor person drank from it, he becomes tummy. If a tummy person drank from it and then one drew from it into a tahor vessel, he becomes tummy. If a tummy person drank from it and then a loaf of truma fell into it, if he rinsed it, it became tummy. If he did not rinse it, it remains tahor.
Okay.
Okay.
So now staying with these water holes that are we're talking about things that are less than 40 se'ah. Okay.
Okay.
So that's anything from a little puddle of rainwater to almost a lake, but anything that's less than 40 se'ah of water is not considered a mikveh, and therefore it doesn't have the power to be mataher other things, but it itself is tahor. Okay. Now so we saw in the first Mishnah we were talking about the case where somebody came, a Tameh person came and drank from it. Okay, now we're dealing with a similar situation where milei bekli tamei v'shasa tahor. So a person took a tamei kli, dipped it into the water, and pulled it out, and naturally a few drops are going to fall back down. So the few drops that came out became tamei in the kli because the kli itself was tamei. Then they dropped back into the water. So now you've got groundwater that is impervious to tuma with a few drops of tamei water that are mixed in. So once again, it's exactly the same as the Mishnah we learned yesterday. We're going to go through exactly the same circumstances and see that how each one of them turns out. So milei bekli tamei umilei bekli tahor. So first of all, if shasa tahor, so a tahor person came and drank from it. Okay, he's going to become tamei because he now among those are going to be the drops that were tamei. Milei bekli tamei umilei bekli tahor. Now he took a tahor kli and tried and filled it. That tahor kli is going to become tamei. Milei bekli tamei v'nafal kikar shel truma. Once again, the case of the loaf of truma that fell into it afterwards. If he rinsed it, it's tamei. If he didn't rinse it, it's tahor. Okay, and it's exactly the same situation as we described yesterday, where he's showing the difference with the truma one. Again, the difference between the two cases is one where there's a ratzon and one where there's no ratzon. If there's no ratzon, if he didn't want that water over there, then we can say that the tamei water is batal in the tahor water. However, if he shows that there's a ratzon that he wants that he's happy that it's wet, then those few drops of tamei water will be matame his truma. Gimel is the same pattern again. Naflu ma'im tameim v'shasa tahor. So any kind of tamei water fell into this puddle. So it's exactly the same setup as we had before, effectively. Either he drank, well, the first Mishnah is talking about he drank from it. The tamei person drank from it and water spilled down. Second one, he filled up from a tamei kli and it spilled back in. Third one is just tamei water fell into it. Okay. and then a tahor person drank from it, he becomes tamei. Naflu mayim tameim umile b'kli tahor, filled up with a tahor kli, it's tamei. Naflu mayim tameim naflu kikar shel truma, im hidiach tamei, im lo hidiach tahor. So all of these circumstances, I honestly, I'm at a loss to understand why we need three Mishnayos to teach us the same thing, because they're all effectively the same thing, where basically tame water fell back into the pond, and now you've got all these different circumstances. But the difference with Mishnah Gimel is that Rabbi Shimon comes and inserts his opinion over here, where he is cholek on all three of the first Mishnayos, and he says bein shediach, bein shelo yediach tame. He says, I don't care whether it was leratzon or not leratzon. If he picked it up and it was wet and it had some tame water on it, it's tame, finished. What do I care whether he had ratzon or not? So that's the important addition of this Mishnah, is Rabbi Shimon's opinion over here, which is not lahalacha, but nonetheless, it's important to understand this opinion, that he holds that it doesn't matter whether you've got ratzon or not. There's tamei water in there, and therefore it becomes tamei. But the Tanna Kama says that in this particular case, ratzon does make a difference.
I don't understand something though. When they talk about a loaf of truma, they're talking about a loaf of bread.
Yes.
Right.
It's
But
a loaf
if
of bread.
that's gonna fall in water, I mean, you're supposed to let it dry out. It's not gonna, who's gonna want to eat that? Who's gonna want,
We're talking about it's just like a quick slush. It's not that it's been soaking in there. It fell. He picked it up. So like
okay, all right,
a little bit of
all
water
right,
gets onto the crust. Okay, so you'll shake it off, and
okay.
okay.
I'm picturing this loaf sitting in the water and the guy's gonna,
No. Also bear in mind, different social circumstances. I mean, we are very finicky and whatever about the things that we eat, because we're a very affluent generation. But in old
those days, right.
times,
Okay.
if you had a loaf and it got wet, tough nuggies, deal with it and eat it.
Right.
That's because that's
Okay.
the food that you've got in the house.
All
Okay.
right.
Mishnah Daled Nafal Nesochan Mace. Now, this is now the important point of these paddles. Why we've been talking about them, why they're even being dealt with in Mikvaos, is because even though they don't have the power to be metaher anything, they're also impervious to tumah. So if a dead person fell into one of these paddles, or shilech behin tame, or a tame person walked through them, shasa tahor, or a tahor person drank from them, they remain tahor. They cannot become tameh unless they are uprooted from their place. Okay, so if they stay in their place, then it stays tahor. Echad Mikvaos, may boros, may shichim, may maros, may tamtzil shipasku. It doesn't matter, or Mikvaos she'ein bahem arbim tzah. All of these cases of whether it's puddles or cisterns or ditches. I don't know why anyone would think the shape would make a difference. Water from in a cave, or uh, source water that stopped. So, for example, a mountain spring that was bubbling up, and then then it stopped coming up, and it just pooled. So now you don't have flowing water anymore. You just got a pool of water that's less than 40, or even a mikveh, something that was built as a mikveh, but never filled up to 40 sa'ah. All of these things have got the same halacha. If they start out in the ground and the water inside there is impervious to tumah. Okay. B'shas hageshamim hakol tahor. Now, when it starts raining, everything is assumed to be tahor, because the rain, if there was any tamei water inside there, we assume the rainwater washed it all away. Okay. Pasku hageshamim. Once the rain stop, hakrovim la'ir v'laderech tameim. We assume that that puddles that are near the city, or that are near your main roads. We assume that people have stopped on the side and have picked them up and let water go through, so we treat them as if they're tamei. But if you're just like walking through a field somewhere and you find a puddle of water over there, you may assume that it is tahor.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you have a lot of people now coming towards this area, and then you have to again assume that some Tameh people have drank from it and let water spill back into them. Okay, so the first four Mishnayos have all been talking about that first case of the puddles, and even Mishnah Hay is still going to carry on with that tomorrow. All right, back to Toros.
Hey.
Hey, Ches Daled.
I took the wrong thing out. Okay, I'm sorry. Wait, I guess Kestal. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. If one left his house open and found it open, locked and found it locked, open and found it locked, is tahor. Locked and he found it open, but may have rules of tummy, but the common rule of tahor, for they were thieves, but they changed their mind and went on their way. If the wife of an Amaretz entered the house of a Chavir in order to bring out his son or daughter or an animal, everything in the house is tahor except since she entered without permission. They stated a general rule concerning taharos. Any item designated as food for a human is tummy until it becomes unfit, even as food for a dog. But if anything that is not designated as food for a human is tahor until it designates it for a human, how so? If a pigeon fell into a vat and he intended to bring it up for a Gentile, it is tummy. For a dog, it's tahor. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says it is tummy, and if a deaf mute, one who's mentally deranged or a mind that had intent, it is tahor. If he raised it up, it is tummy for they have an act, but they have an act, but not intent.
Okay.
So they don't have the
Yeah.
das to do that.
Right.
Okay.
No das. Okay. Para.
If a flask of mekatos is the flask of sacrificial food or of truma, the flask of mekatos is rendered tummy, whereas the flask of sacrificial food or truma is declared tahor. Both flasks are in his, but both flasks are in his two hands. Both of them are rendered tummy. If both flasks are wrapped in separate papers, both of them are tahor. The flask of mekatos is wrapped in paper, and the flask of truma is placed directly in his hand. Both are rendered tummy. If the flask of truma is wrapped in paper and the flask of mekatos is directly in his hand, both of them are tahor. Yeshua says the flask of mekatos is rendered tummy, and if they were placed on the ground and he touched them, the flask of mekatos is tummy, where the flask of sacrificial food or of truma is tahor. If he caused them to move, Rabbi Yeshua declares a tummy, and the sages there declare a tahor. A flask containing mekatos that contains a flask containing mekatos that someone left uncovered, and upon returning he finds it uncovered is unfit for katos use. If he left it covered and upon returning he found it uncovered, or a weasel can drink from it, or a snake, according to the words of Rabbi Gamaliel, or dew descends into the flask at night, like the mekatos is unfit for katos use. Katos is not saved from tumah by a sealed cover. However, water that is not sanctified is saved from tumah by means of a sealed cover. Okay. Any tumah uncertainty that is ruled tahor with regard to tumah is ruled tahor with regard to katos. Any tumah uncertainty that is ruled suspended with regard to truma is spelled out with regard to katos, and if tahor items were prepared on its basis, they are suspended. Screens of tahor with regard to sacrificial foods, truma and katos. And Eliezer says loosely connected boards of tummy with regard to katos.
Okay.
Okay.
Ohalos.
Okay. Test diet. Kestal. If the hide is one handbreadth above the ground and there is tumah below it or inside the house, whatever is below the hide or inside the house becomes tummy, but whatever is inside or above the hide remains tahor. If the tumor is inside the hive, only that which is inside becomes tummy. If the tumor is above the hive, utensils directly above it up to the sky become tummy. In what case is a supply? When the hive's mouth is outdoors. However, if the mouth is inside the house and an olive-sized piece of corpse is located outdoors, either below or above the hide, any utensils that are directly above or below the olive-sized piece or anything inside the hive becomes tummy. Anything that is not directly below or above the olive-sized piece and whatever is inside the hive and the house becomes tahor, remains tahor. And the piece of corpse is located inside either the hive or the house, everything becomes tummy. If the hive is located one handbreadth above the ground and there is tumah below it, the hive inside the house or inside or above the hive, everything becomes tummy.
Okay.
And Mikvaos. If he said, I take upon myself to bring wine, and he may not bring less than 3 lugim. Oil, he may not bring less than a log. Rebbe says 3 lugim. I specify, but I do not know what I specified. He must bring like the amount brought on the day with the greatest requirement. If one said, I take upon myself to bring an olah, and he brings a lamb, or Rebbe Eliezer ben Azariel says either a pigeon or a young dove, I specified from cattle, but I do not know what I specified. He must bring a bull and a calf. From animals, but I do not know what I specified. He must bring a bull and a calf, a ram, a kid, and a lamb. I specified, but I do not what I specified. He adds to them a pigeon and a young dove. I take upon myself to bring an all offering or shlomim offering, and he brings a lamb. I specify from cattle, but I don't know what I specified. He must bring a bull and a cow, and a male calf and a female calf. From animals, but I do not know what I specified. He must bring a bull and a cow, a male cow and a female cow, a ram and or a ewe, a male cow, kid and a female kid, a male goat and a female goat, a male lamb and a female lamb.
Okay.
It's a lot of meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the Kohanim have to eat it.
Yeah. A
Well,
woman who
it's
vowed
not an Ola, that is. If it's an Ola, then the Mizbeach gets it all.
a woman who vowed to be a Nazirah and drank wine and rendered herself tummy from the dead, she receives 40 lashes. If her husband revoked the Naziris, but she did not know that her husband had revoked the Naziris and she drank wine and rendered herself tummy from the dead, she does not receive 40 lashes. Rabbi Yehuda says, even if she does not receive 40 lashes, she receives lashes for rebelliousness. A woman who vowed to be a Nazirah and set aside her animal, and then her husband revoked her Naziris, if her animal was his, it may go out and pass through the flock. If the animal was hers, the sin offering dies, the burnt offering is offered as a burnt offering, and the peace offering is offered as a peace offering, but it is eaten for one day and does not require bread. If she had unspecified funds, they go for voluntary offerings. Specified funds, the money goes for a sin offering. The money for a sin offering goes to the Dead Sea. One may not benefit from it, but the rules governing the misuse of sacred items do not apply to it. With the money for the burnt offering, they bring a burnt offering, and the rules governing the misuse of sacred items apply with the money for the peace offering. They may bring a peace offering, but if eaten for one day, it does not require bread. If one of the bloods is thrown on her behalf, it cannot revoke. Rabbi Akiva says even if one of all the animals was slaughtered on her behalf, she cannot revoke it. In what context are these said? Concerning the head shaving and tahara, but in the case of head shaving for tuma, he may revoke, since he may say, I do not want an impoverished animal, and Rebbe says even
No,
concerning the head,
no, impoverished animal.
impoverished animal, woman.
Thank you.
Well, no women were listening to that. I do not want an impoverished woman. Rebbe says even concerning the head shaving and tahara, he may revoke, since he may say, I do not want a shorn woman.
Okay, yes. You're the psychologist here.
Yeah, we don't want to start with that. Okay, or base
Zion.
fine. Stringently and incident and leniently if there are different kinds, how so? If a distant crushed leaves have been cooked with lentils and they impart a flavor where they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, well, it is forbidden. If they do not impart a flavor where they are outweighed by 100 to 1 or they are not outweighed by 100 to 1, it is permitted. If leaven of chulin fell in the dough and it suffices to leaven, then leaven of truma fell in, or leaven and kilai halchayim, it suffices to leaven, it's forbidden. If leaven of chulin fell in the dough and leavened it, then leaven of truma or leaven of kilai halchayim fell into it and it suffices to leaven it, it's forbidden, but Reb Shimon permits it.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Have a
Have a great
wonderful
day.
day.
Thank you. Enjoy. Thanks.